Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to Forza Horizon 6. I am here with the Dodge Charger. We're going to talk today about how to make a wheelie tune out of almost any car in Forza Horizon 6. Unlike in 5, a lot more cars are capable of pulling wheelies, and some of them can pull some pretty wild ones. For example, I can now pull a Dom with the Charger in this game, whereas in 5 this is very difficult to do. Not to say in 5 you couldn't get the Charger to do it, but it's a lot easier to do it in this one. And we don't have the Fast and Furious pack that came with a separate Charger, Dom's Charger, that was able to pull wheelies in 5, but not available in 6. Okay, now, given that we have this, let's talk about how to make this car pull the wheelies the way that I'm doing. With any wheelie tune, the key is the build followed by the tune. So before we get into the tune, we need to talk about how to build the car to then tune for a wheelie. So for that, we're going to go back to the house. Custom upgrades are very important for getting a car to become a wheelie car. There are three main factors to getting a car to wheelie. One is enough power. I usually just slap in one of the bigger motors. In this case, for Dom's Charger, I'm using the 6.2 liter V8 DSC, but you can see here, I've also tried the 8.9 V8 DSC. They both can pull it off. More power means you need to be better at managing grip, which brings us to the next part. With power is great, but you also need grip. And grip is achieved by the most important upgrade in any wheelie tune, and drag tune for that matter, and that is the drag tire compound. In 6, we have the advantage of now being able to put drag tires on absolutely everything, and that is really good. For a front level wheelie, you want rear grip to be good, much like a drag tune. You're going to put wider rear tires on. If you want to do a reverse wheelie where the car lifts the rear end and not the front end, you would put similar kind of wide tire in the front and play with the suspension to accomplish that. For the engine upgrades, it doesn't really matter. You can fully upgrade an engine. You could just leave it stock, but 1,000 horsepower or so seems to be at least a starting number. With smaller, lighter cars needing only 400 or 500 horsepower to pull wheelies, it really depends on the car. Really heavy vehicles that are really long, such as the dually truck, probably won't wheelie simply because it's just not enough torque and leverage to get the front end up enough. As far as suspension upgrades, brakes is mostly to lighten the car. When you put the brakes on, it's not really necessary, but everybody does it. The main thing for suspension is rally. Height helps you get a wheelie started. The higher the car, the easier they usually are to wheelie. This is why rally setups with high level of suspension travel, those cars generally end up being really wild wheelie cars. The Mannix come to mind because it's a silly little car that's real light, has really high suspension, and lets you kind of wheelie like crazy. Another thing about a wheelie build and drag build to some degree would be rigidity. You want the chassis to be rigid so all the weight transfer happens without flex of the body. I don't know how they did this in the physics, but it does seem to matter. Putting a cage in makes a car wheelie better. Ultimately, the lighter the car, the easier it is to put power to the point of lifting the front. So obviously, weight reduction will always help. You definitely need to play with gear ratio. So a adjustable gear ratio transmission, whether 6 or 7 speed or 10 speed for that matter, whichever one you like, doesn't matter. You want the adjustable gear ratios. The rest of these are not adjustable, but the diff is. So you want to put a diff in off-road, drift, race, as long as it's the fully unlocked, the fully adjustable tuning. As far as the clutch and the carbon drive shaft, if I can put them in, I put them in. Lighter weight, quicker clutch engagement. None of that will hurt you when it comes to getting the car to wheelie. Final build, weight, again, a lot of the hoods lighten the car. Some of the body kits will also affect the car, but for wheelie purposes, lighter hood, if you got it, throw it on there. So that is the first step, right? We got the car built. Now we're going to have to tune it. And the tuning is very important when it comes to wheelie builds, because what essentially causes a car to be able to wheelie is having enough grip to overwhelm the suspension to let the car basically hook so hard that the one end lifts up. In order to do that, it's very important that you have the gearing and suspension aligned for the purpose of getting a wheelie done. So let's go back and talk about how each affects things. Lower tire pressure, generally the consensus is gives you more grip. However, lower tire pressure also requires you sometimes to heat up the tires to get the best grip. I put it in the middle not because that's the best spot. That just right now after tuning, it happens to work. The tire that isn't needed for the grip, usually the front when you're doing a normal wheelie, you can put it to 55 psi, reduce the amount of contact patch, making it less impactful. In drag racing, it's to reduce drag, but lowering the grip here usually helps with that and helps with grip. So you can definitely do it that way. I was tuning this car for drag times as well as a wheelie, so it's a little different. I didn't go all the way to 15, but standard setup, you can go straight to 15 and leave it there. All right, now gearing. Gearing relies on its impact relative to the rest. So it's very hard to just say, slap the gear into this and you're good to go. Yes and no. If you just slap the gear like this, depending on your suspension setting, you may or may not actually hook. With this car particularly, you're able to get away with very high settings for suspension and still hook. Some cars are the reverse. You cannot do this because it'll spin the tire. So how do we go about tuning these? Well, for alignment, again, 5.0 is more for the purpose of drag racing. You don't need to worry about that. You can put it to 0, it'll still wheelie. You can put it to 5, you can put it to -5. General consensus for drag racers, put it to 5 and go from there. Rear 0. You want the whole contact patch as much as possible. Unless the car comes with extreme negative camber to start with in the suspension, in which case you may want to do something like this, but that's very rare. Most cars, 0 is fine. -5 front toe. Why? The more you adjust toe negative in, the more, quote, stable the car is. Toe in brings it together. This can increase stability. Stability means easier chance to wheelie. It is just one of the side effects of stability is that you wheelie easier. -5 if you want purely want wheelie. If you want a drag tune, this is generally 0 because this makes the car slower, even though it wheelie's nice. So that's a trade-off right there. Front caster angle, same thing. If you already got the biggest tire in the back and you already have it set up with no negative camber, you don't want the tire to move around. You want it to stand straight. So positive caster, increasing it, okay, allows you to run less negative camber. That's the whole point of that. You want to kind of balance this to make sure the whole tire contact patch is there. You can check that on the telemetry. So that would be one way to play with that. Roll bars. Generally to start, I would put all roll bars to soft. You don't really need hard roll bars to make the car grip. This actually helps grip. This tends to hurt it. But for drag racing, more roll bar stiffness in certain cars will increase its performance. You got to play with this. Roll bars actually in the 5 didn't do much, but in 6 it's quite important to tweak it. Sometimes a little bit of roll bar versus a lot of roll bar actually makes a big difference. So it's not something to just put to 0 or max anymore like before. It is worth investigating when you're tuning. For wheelie purposes, it's not that important. All right, springs. Not all cars want to start with stiff rear springs. The start point you should start with is always the maximum ride height, minimum spring, and work on dampening first to see if the car will lift. Then with dampening, you also want to kind of start in the middle, not all the way out, because more dampening causes more wheel spin. Very little dampening causes the car to wiggle a lot, and in some cars with enough power, it actually helps it wheelie. So this is, again, one of the things you have to tweak. So springs, dampening, anti-roll, alignment. These 4 things then relates back to gearing. Okay, too much gearing here means you're gonna need less here. So they kind of push against each other. More aggressive gearing, probably less aggressive dampening. More aggressive dampening, you probably need less aggressive gearing. But there is a kind of a perfect point between the two where the car gets the most of its grip and still maximize its power output by gearing in a way that makes the car want to lift. So it's not a one setting cures all kind of situation, and it is unique to each car. Rear differential lock. I usually build rear-wheel drive cars for drag racing, particularly in 6, because that seems to work just as well as all-wheel drive. In 5, and when I played with 5, some cars really needed all-wheel drive to hook, and in 6 as well. I mean, the Miata FE, for example, you probably want to keep all-wheel drive on that one. It's just too powerful. Now, rear-wheel drive setup, if you play with this, if you do an all-wheel drive, you would also play with this almost the same way. Having full acceleration grip can sometimes make the car go better in a way, but slower. A little bit of slip, less slip, may actually make the car hook at the right spot. This also goes to where you have this. Sometimes if you have a more aggressive final drive, and the purpose of this is the more aggressive you put this, in theory, the quicker the RPM rises, and the more likely, again, you'll spin your tires. Why do I put it up for this car? Because at 2.2, even with 6.0 first gear, it doesn't have enough twist to get the front end up nicely. So I started enhancing how quickly the RPMs rise, and this way I can play with the gear ratios more. Differential worked out the same way. 100% differential isn't really needed to get this car to lift, and isn't necessary to get the car to do what you want. So that's the Charger RT. In order to better understand how this works as applied to other cars, let's go to the Warthog. Okay, in 5, the Warthog was not permitted to run drag tires, so nobody can really get it to wheelie because it'll just spin. Well, that has changed, and with the big motor and drag tires, the Warthog now wheelies very easily. Okay, where you launch the car also affects the amount of power that goes in when you first launch the car, right? If you go to 4,000 RPM, you're launching at 700 horsepower versus launching at 342 horsepower. They still lift, but if you notice, if you can do more power at full grip, the car will lift a lot nicer. But it can over wheelie. But full RPMs, maybe too much. In this case, it still has the grip. For many cars, that's too much. It'll spin. So the Warthog, again, is now a wheelie car, and I didn't even tune it yet specifically for that. I was starting to mess with it for, as you can see, this is one of those situations where I have to have this up 6.0 and the first gear is still hooking so hard that I'm lifting. So this is a gear ratio, but if you look at my alignment setup, anti-roll, springs, this one needs a lot of springs, but dampening on this one I had it reduced. In fact, it is so happy to wheelie that in order to control the wheelie, I may have to put some front rebound or front spring in to keep the front end down. All in all though, the most important things are all adjusted here. So this is the Warthog. So this is a different car. And the reason why it wheelies so well is because, well, it's tall. What about short cars? What about cars that are not so high up? Can they also wheelie? Well, sure. We know from before, for example, let me see if I can find the Honda. Where's my Honda brand? Oh, here. Right? Remember the NSXR GT? Well, this was a nice wheelie car in 5, and it did not change. Even though it is a lower car, the mid-engine setup, of course it's raining, which kind of ruins our ability to do this. You know what? I may be able to. I just thought of something. The parking garages won't have water in it. We can go in there if I can find them. Let's go find. Oh, there they are. Okay. Let's go into the parking garage. The parking garage shouldn't have water in it. Therefore, ooh, raining or not, I should be able to at least do what I need to do. Let's go in here. If it's wet in here, I'm going to be quite upset. Oh, it is wet inside the parking garage. Oh my God. That is so lame. I don't even know what to say. That's one leaky parking garage, that's for sure. Wow. Indoors, underneath a parking garage, it is still wet. All right, well that's kind of lame. We're gonna have to wait till it gets dry to continue this because unfortunately grip goes away in the wet, and that means no more wheeling with the car. All right, so we need to wait till this dries up, then we'll pick this back up. All right, we're back. It's dried up. Let's go ahead and show you guys the NSXR GT. Now this one I have set up for drag racing, but the situation doesn't change. Drag tires, rally suspension, all the pieces you normally use for a drag setup, it's also what you need for wheelie. So this one I am tuning it to control wheelie, right? I don't want it to wheelie as hard as it can because obviously control is better for the purpose of the drag racing itself. But let's say we just want this thing to pop a wheelie wildly. You would take away the reduction or the increase here to reduce the resistance to wheeling, and that will allow it to simply wheelie harder. Okay? The reason why I took away some of the ability to wheelie so hard is because I don't want the car to over wheelie and then lose control. But here you go. So let's say you're launching it, boom. Okay. So mid-engine, much lower car, but notice it is elevated. I'm running the highest height possible. And with that, it's really not hard to get it to wheelie very well. So let's finish up with a little bit harder car that potentially to do, and that is the newest addition we got, and that is the Ram truck. Big trucks can wheelie. Don't think they won't, but the longer the vehicle, the heavier it is, the harder it is sometimes to get that grip to work. You have to build it same way to get a kind of a drag tune on it, and this is right now a stock truck. So let's go ahead and build it, and we'll wrap up the video with this truck's wheelie build. I haven't tested this, so I'm going to show you how I figure things out as we go. And this is a good way for you to get a better feel for the entire process from upgrade all the way to wheeling. 1750 horsepower motor. It does have a wide body or something. I don't think it's necessary. This comes all-wheel drive. We're going to make it a rear-wheel drive. Not because I need to. I just did it just to do it. Okay. Less stuff to tune when you have rear-wheel drive versus all-wheel drive. That's all that is. Again, rally suspension adds a little height. We want to be able to tweak the anti-roll bars. We're going to go ahead and throw reinforcement in. One thing to note is this. Notice the front percentage gets lighter when you put the cage in. This is going to help you lift that front end. That is part of the reason why we're doing this. Now it's down to 51% in the front, which is very nice. That's good to see. Okay, 51% of the weight in the front. We're going to put all this in. The very important piece, the tire, right? You got to have drag tire, and drag tire is available. Notice, launch is only a 7.8, it's not a 10. That means this car is not going to launch hard because it doesn't have the tire width. With the tire width, it actually didn't seem to help any. That's not a good sign. But we have another thing to upgrade here, and that is the big tires. That seems to say that it's even less grip on launch. I'm going to have to withhold my decision on that until I actually tune the car. Okay, we're going to take a look at this. Let's see if any of these can shift the front. Weight-wise, you don't want to add weight. You want to lower weight. These all add weight. No reason to do anything with that. Let's see if any of these help. Nope. More weight. More weight. Leave it. More weight. Side skirts. And hood. Hood generally gives you less weight, but not always in this case. So these are not necessary for this car. All right, let's install these. Remember, sometimes too much horsepower means too little grip. So this 1750 motor, if it's overwhelming the tires too much, I may have to come back and throw in a slightly less powerful motor to see if we can get it better control out of it. Let's go to drag strip so we have the same surface compound as the other one. So we we have some level of consistency. Hopefully it doesn't rain while I'm trying to tune this. Okay. All right, so where do we start? You're gonna start off tire, right? Tire tune, we're gonna put to this, to this. Gearing's next. First, we're gonna lower the final drive because you don't want too much crazy acceleration on the gear ratio because that makes the car spin. But notice I'm kind of limited on the RPM gain with even 6.0, so that may end up changing. We're gonna put it there for now. With a lot of cars, you're actually more likely to start off longer to kind of feel for it, where the tire spin stops, and move it shorter and shorter to get the car to lift. This, you can just do this for now. Roll bars, soft. Springs, soft. Dampening, I kind of match the top to the bottom first, put that to 0, leave that 100. That's the starting point. So what you're going to do is you're going to test, oh, wheelie already. Look at that. This is a wheelie monster. All right, there it is. Okay, so now that I got it to wheelie right away, we can now conclusively say this is a wheelie truck. Okay. All right. Now, if you want the wheelie to be more controllable and you want to wheelie second gear and third gear potentially, this is where you start to put the other gear ratios in. Okay. Also, if I want a little more aggressiveness in the beginning at a lower RPM, you would start increasing the final drive. But notice how adding too much now makes the car spin. So to avoid that, this is where gear ratio comes into play. Back off. Okay. Now, notice the car was kind of left and right a little bit. That is where the tune for the anti-roll bars can help a little bit with that level of control. But more anti-roll also could mean you're going to have more wheel spin. Okay. But you see how that controls a little better? There we go. All right, so our truck that they gave us for this season is a nice, easy one to wheelie. So there you go. Dodge Ram TRX wheelie setup. All right, I hope this video gives you all the information you need to build your own wheelie tune. And, you know, play with different cars, test it out. Once you can get wheelie tunes down, you can get any car to wheelie smoothly and land smoothly in first gear, you have now started your process of becoming a good drag race tuner, because drag racing relies on a lot of the same factors as wheelie tuning, which is weight transfer and controlling weight transfer. Once you can control weight transfer and apply power to the ground through grip, weight transfer, and slight controlled wheelie, you will have some of the fastest 0 to 60s and therefore some of the quickest cars in the quarter mile for that particular build. All right, I hope this video was instructional and helpful. Please feel free to make comments or ask questions. I'm happy to share more information. If you have any things that you're trying to do and it confuses you, it's not working, feel free to hit me up and I'll try to explain how to adjust things. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you like my channel and you want to learn how to do drag racing tunes as well, that'll be coming up as the next video. Please subscribe, hit the bell, and you get notified when I put up new videos. And as always, thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.